everybody. After a bye week, basically, Josh and I took last week off since there was no UFC event. We are back and we are re-energized and ready to rock and roll. MMA Mobsters, of course, coming to you with compliments of cellsaviors.org, dimene.com, and grapplersclash.com. Check out grapplersclash.com. If you're a grappler, jump on there. There's a promo code that you can use as well to get in there for free. Try it for 6 months for free. Go find matches around the country and make yourself famous and eventually make yourself a lot of money without a manager, without a promoter, with all that good stuff. You can do it yourself with the toolkit through the digital world. So, of course, joining me, the Chauvin one, Joshua Chauvin. How are you doing, buddy, after the week off? Are you rested? I mean, you're looking beautiful, the hair, the beard, everything that's going on here. It's like the Beastie Boys version of the NBA, which I would call the JBA, the Jewish Basketball Association look that you've taken on. It's pretty good, buddy. It's pretty good.
Shalom, Pat Militech. Yes, we are here. You are where you are. I am where I am, and we are ready.
I'm quite impressed. I'm impressed with what you've
done.
What,
Pat? It's really taking a life of its own, and I think it's become sentient. I think it's become self-aware, and it makes its own decisions now. So.
Good. And maybe a few good decisions for you this week coming up in your betting.
Positive vibes. Positive vibes. I love it.
All right. Beautiful. All right. So let's talk a little bit about not last week, but the week before. Let's recap the last UFC card, the matchups, how you did, or do we want to just do MVP since it's more recent? You want to talk about MVP a little bit?
Well, I think I think people want to probably mostly hear about the MVP card. I guess.
Sure.
I'll quickly say shout out to Arnold Allen. He dispatched the young and hungry Melquizel Costa, and it was similar to maybe Strickland dispatching Fluffy Hernandez a few months ago. Aljamain Sterling dispatching Yusuf Zalal. You know, the pioneer Hall of Famer that you got to have some appreciation for these veterans that the fans and the fighters and the odds makers start to disrespect a bit and be like, thinking Arnold Allen's about done. I'm thinking Aljamain Sterling's about done. And then they come back, defeat the unprospect, and show the old Lions got a little bit left. What do you think about that?
No, I think it's great. I think that, as long as the body hasn't fallen apart and you can rejuvenate yourself and build yourself, because when you build them, it's always that race to accumulate and dial in the endurance, the strength, and accumulate the technique and the timing and the transitions and all these things that go together before your body falls apart. I mean, that's really the race in a sport, not a contact sport, but an impact sport that MMA is. The body goes through quite a bit. So it's all about getting to the peak of the mountain before the blizzard hits and takes the body out, right?
Well said. Well said.
So,
and I guess,
all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and like you said, that's about it for UFC. I think most people want to hear about this MVP MMA card because it was on Netflix. It's got the Jake Paul, Ariel Helwani, etc. train behind it. And I'll give my thoughts quickly, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts, Pat Militech. I would say it was a success. I mean, people will say anything, but I would say, yeah, you put on an event on Netflix, you got a bunch of people to watch, and you convince some big names to join. With the monopoly the UFC has created, it isn't super easy to just build an MMA promotion out of scratch. We're going to talk about that with Coker here in a little bit. So hats off to them to doing that. I have 2 words to describe the first ever MVP MMA card. One is promising. The other one is underwhelming. I mean, you look at the main event, Robelis Despaigne smashed Junior Dos Santos in about 2 minutes. That fight was not competitive at all. This French kid that they got from KSW, shout out KSW. I think they're a top 5 MMA promotion. So they had a prospect who the UFC had not signed yet, and I'm sure MVP offered him more money. He looked great, but he was also facing a guy who was nowhere in his league. And then you had Ngannou absolutely destroy Felipe Lins. You had Nate Diaz get destroyed by, oh my goodness, Mike
the
Perry.
Madman. the
Yeah,
Madman.
which you shout out to you. I was leaning a little bit in the Nate Diaz direction until you broke it down very well. And one of the only times that you've talked to me right off a bat, and by the end of you talking, I was like, yeah, I'm on Mike Perry also. So kudos to you for that. And then the ultimate underwhelming fight, Ronda Rousey, lasted about 10 seconds with Gina Carano. Looking back on that, did we really need to pluck Gina Carano kind of out of obscurity? Couldn't we have found a more decent fighter, maybe like a Misha Tate, that would have given her a little bit more of a fight? But all in all the superstars won, all the favorites won. I was just left wanting a little bit more. What do you think?
I think that they got a ton of viewers. I think that a lot of people watched. I think that, of course, we knew that Ronda Rousey was probably going to win that fight pretty easily. I mean, it was a little easier than I even expected, but I didn't expect it to last long necessarily. Ngannou, we knew was going to, smash his opponent. I think I even texted you and Lee, if either one of those lose, I don't belong even talking about the sport. You know what I mean? So it was what we expected pretty much out of, all the matchups. I'm sure you did quite well financially. And I think it's a great start, a good launching pad for them, if they plan on doing more. So, good for them. And I would like to see more. I would like to see more competitive matchups. I would like to see them build young stars, things like that. But it's going to be tough. Here's the thing. I want to interweave the news of Scott Coker coming back, putting the band back together. He's an incredible promoter. I worked with him. I didn't work for him, but I worked with him when I was at Showtime Sports calling fights. And when Strikeforce was, of course, the focus of MMA broadcasts there. Since then, Showtime Sports technically no longer exists. That has gone away. And it's unfortunate because that was a platform that did very well when quality athletic events were on and things like that. But, Coker put together Strikeforce. It was incredible. It had incredible heavyweight division, 170, 185ers, even 155ers, who went on to do well when it got absorbed by the UFC. It did all those guys did really well in the UFC, won titles, did a lot of great things. So when I look at MVP or I look at now Coker making a comeback, I sit there and I have to feather the throttle a little bit and think, are they doing this just to sell out to the UFC ultimately? Because that's what generally always ends up happening with all these different organizations. So I don't jump on the bandwagon. I just sit back and go, I hope they do well. But ultimately, are they just going to sell out to the behemoth of the UFC and everybody's going to go, oh shit, it happened again. You know what I mean? So I just don't get overly excited about any of that stuff. But Coker's a quality guy. He's an incredible promoter, knows how to find talent. But again, sorry for talking so long and running on here, but who's going to find the talent to be in these organizations and find the stars that are out there? They're out there, but the UFC is bringing fighters in with 4 fights. They want to own the athletes from cradle to grave.
Yes.
And that's, I think, is a disservice ultimately to the sport, because I think that fighters need to go through the process of actually getting the right to enter, that high level worldwide broadcast level, instead of coming in at 4-0 or whatever, and suddenly they're thrust into being seen by everybody on the planet. It just doesn't make sense, right? They don't do that. They never did that with pro boxing. They don't do that with the NFL. They don't, any of that shit. So it doesn't make sense unless you want to own lock, stock, and barrel the sport from beginning to end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what you're saying is that's what the Bellators and the PFLs used to be, were feeder systems into the UFC, and then the UFC, with their billions and billions, decided that they could just cut the feeder systems out and, like you said, get a kid who's 4-2 and lock him into a very affordable contract. And if he's good, he can build his way up. And it'll be interesting to see how the MMA landscape looks 3 years from now, 5 years from now, because I think it could go a multitude of ways. And We'll see. We'll see how Netflix MMA does. Obviously, the Netflix machine is one of the only things that can rival the UFC machine as far as money goes. And I agree with Coker. In a world where MMA promoters often do some very shady, some very selfish, and even criminal things, Scott Coker has kept his head above the water and has seemed to be a man of character, a man of respect, a man who will certainly treat the fighters fairly, will treat other people fairly. And I think if you believe in karma or whatever, I think karma is somewhat rewarding him with another shot to build a promotion. And I think we know one thing, it won't fail miserably. Could it be around for a few years and then sell out? Maybe. But I think he's going to have some success, and I'm excited to see what he puts together.
Yeah, and I'm talking about developmental level fighters, like in Caged Aggression, which are regional organizations, things like that. When you're pulling fighters with a record of 4-0, that you've already dipped into the Caged Aggressions, that are regional promotions, not bigger ones like PFL and these other ones. You're going way down the list for talent to get athletes at that level. So it just, then you end up with people fighting in smaller regional events, with Daisy Duke gene cutoffs and, marijuana tattoos on their foreheads and shit like that. It can get pretty bad if you think about it.
It's a circus. I think that's, and how do you feel about that? Because I know that the old Pride days with the walkouts, and I like the theatrics. I like the circus. Now, we don't want to get fighters hurt, like with the karate combat situation where we had two fighters who had no business fighting each other. But there's going to be a bit of a circus element, but you got to protect the fighters too, both physically and financially.
No, yeah, well, and I wasn't saying what I was saying to disparage Caged Aggression. Mike Goodwin's always put on great
Oh, I don't
shows
think you were, yeah.
with very good talent and things like that. I don't want those level organizations to be damaged by too much dipping down into the well so deep at the beginning phases of athletes' careers. That's all. The kids haven't really earned the right to be on TV. They just haven't. I mean, that's just not the way it works. I mean, I could sit there and go on and complain or whatever, but I was like 21-1 by the time I made it into the UFC. Why shouldn't they have to get, a certain number of fights into the teens at least, to make it to that level? I mean, the proving grounds are made of like daisy fields and shit anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
So, all right, enough complaining out of me. Other news, Covington released from the UFC or retiring. I can't make out which exactly happened. But I can say this, that he towed the line for Donald Trump so much, wearing his MAGA hat everywhere and going off and his theatrics and everything else. And then they didn't put him on the White House card, which he desperately, wanted to be and really rallied for that constantly. Didn't get on the White House card, and all of a sudden he's retiring and the UFC released him or whatever transpired. It was, you got kicked to the curb, brother.
Yeah, and I think, like most things these days, it comes down to money. Colby Covington did not look good 2 fights ago against Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards beat him up pretty bad in that title shot. And then Joaquin Buckley beat him up very bad about a year later. And Colby Covington has not fought since then in the past year and a half. And I think it was the situation of Colby has a long history of asking the UFC for a lot of money and holding out until they give him what he wants, and then he puts on a show and he gets a lot of eyeballs and he talks a lot of trash and usually fights his tail off. He's what you want out of a fighter. He's going to use his mouth to sell the fight, and then he's going to deliver with his fists and his knees and his when he gets in there. But age catches up to all of us. He's not the same Colby Covington that he was, not even close. And I imagine he just asked for more money than the UFC wanted him to give him. And also keep in mind, this isn't the Colby Covington show. It never would have been. We have 2 massive title fights on this card. Alex Pereira is moving up to heavyweight now, collecting UFC belts like they're Infinity Stones. That's your big fight against Cyril Gane. I think probably he's already a top 10 fighter ever. And Ilia Topuria gets Justin Gaethje. That's an incredible fight. Covington would have wanted to be the star. He was never going to be the star. They just wanted someone for Bo Nickel to beat up, and Kyle Dawkins feels that role fine for, I imagine, a lot less money. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. So, All right, moving on. Conor McGregor and
Woo.
Max Holloway signed, apparently. Conor, is he actually coming back? I mean, let's be honest here. This has been, you know, Charlie Brown going to kick the football,
Yes. Yes.
the rug getting pulled out, the football being pulled out of the way numerous times. Is this, honestly, are there odds right now? Could you please look the odds that
Oh,
the
I
fight's
looked.
actually going to happen? You
Oh,
looked?
to happen. I thought you meant the odds. The odds are about minus 400 for Max Holloway, which I think is low. If anything, I think that Max absolutely walks all over him. I actually like that Max got, we call it wrestle fucked by Charles Oliveira in his last fight, where he just got held down and couldn't do
Yeah,
much. Connor's not going to do that to him, but it's his hype has kind of fallen off since losing his BMF belt, and so now he gets Connor, and Connor seems to have this thing where he thinks if he beat you once, he just kind of owns you forever. That was his thinking with Poirier. Oh, I scorched this guy in about 2 minutes 12 years ago. I'll have no issues. And Poirier then showed him not once, but twice that you do not
right.
own me. Evolution happens, age happens, stuff like that. So I think that's kind of what he thinks of Max. I beat Max a very long time ago, all the way back in 2013. I'll still get him. I don't think that'll be the case. I think Max is in far better form. Max will be younger. And let's be completely honest, for the past 5 years, Max has been fighting, and for the past 5 years, Connor's been doing cocaine and throwing strippers off of cruise ships. So I think one one is conducive to winning the fight. One is not, Pat Militech.
Yeah. There's no odds apparently. Lee looked for us. There's no odds on whether the fight's even going to happen, but I'd like to see those because I'm going to take the does not happen
Yeah.
bet. I really, I'm leaning that way, and you are correct on. No, Connor renting cruise ships, literally renting yachts and throwing parties, and yes, throwing strippers off of those boats. Yeah, he's had quite a ride the past 5 years after making roughly $100 million in this fight against Mayweather. And I can tell you this, that if I did a big fight and I made $100 million, which I tried to do, I tried to fight Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones and I were in talks for quite a while, and then Winky Wright and I were going to fight after Roy got beat in Australia, got knocked out in Australia. Plans changed, but if I made $100 million, I wouldn't be spending it on yachts and hookers. I'd be on a ranch in Montana and say goodbye. I've done.
Yep.
I've fought enough. This is the pinnacle. We're good, right? We're good.
Yep.
That's enough. So, but anyway, to each their own. And Connor's got roughly, $750,000 left of the $100 million.
Yeah. Right. You sure?
So now he's got to come back and fight, which increases the odds of the fight actually happening.
And I just want to talk to you real quick before we move on, Pat. I mean, from a Hall of Famer, from the inaugural 170 champion, how do you think that Connor's mindset is? He probably still has enough money for multiple lifetimes. Do you think that he craves?
No, I was totally joking about the. I was totally joking about the amount of money left.
But,
yeah,
no, but that goes into my question. Enough money for multiple lifetimes. Is it the attention that he craves? Is it the respect that he craves? Is it the action that he craves? Is it all of the above? Why do you think Connor is getting back in the octagon?
Well, I mean, the intensity, the money, all these things. I mean, when you get used to walking into a cage or competing in high level sports and doing those sort of things, you're kind of programmed to do it, and you'd like to continue doing it, So I don't blame the guy for wanting to get back in there, and I hope he gets in shape and gets focused and everything goes well for him. It's to each their own, but who knows? Who knows exactly his motivation? But I'm guessing, life gets pretty boring at times when you haven't got the camaraderie, the training, the intensity, all of those things. I mean, it is what it is. But so yeah, remains to be seen, and we'll see if anybody comes out with. Maybe you should suggest to your platform buddies over there at bet.com and all the other places to start open some odds on it, whether it actually happens.
Tell you what, Pat, I will tickle your fancy here. If I were a sports book, I would set the line of at least does this fight happen on the date that it's supposed to, which I believe is mid July. I would set the odds at fight happens at minus 200, and I would say fight doesn't happen at plus 150. I think the UFC was embarrassed by the Michael Chandler fight nonsense falling out. I think they rescheduled that 3 or 4 times and then finally said, F it, we're done. I don't think they want to get embarrassed like that again. I think they'll have momentum after the White House card. They want to keep that momentum going. I don't think they would have booked this fight unless they had at least somewhat of a handshake deal from Conor saying, you promise you're going to show up. So I think it happens, but will I be shocked if he pulls out once again? Nope.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I won't be surprised either. All right, let's move on with this week's card. UFC Fight Night. Loma Bunmi against Jacqueline Amarim. Both have had several fights in the UFC. Both have done respectfully. They've performed pretty well. Have similar records overall. I won't get into some of the other details I've got here. I just want to listen to kind of how you break this down, because I see this being kind of a potentially a toss-up level fight.
Toss-up is a very good word for this, Pat Militech. We have a little pow, 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 underdog move to favorite action. I love that. Now, I like it more when it's male fighters doing that, because nothing sexist. The math tells us that when a male fighter moves from an underdog status and smart money moves him to favorite status, that's something to pay very close attention to. But for women, it certainly matters too, just not as a high of a hit rate. So Jacqueline opened up at plus 108 on FanDuel. She's minus 126 now, and I think that ties along with what you're talking about. Loma Bunmi is very steady. She's very calculated. She's very measured. What she lacks in athletic talent, she makes up for in discipline. She's rarely out of position. She has very high cage IQ, but she's not that explosive, can finish you out of nowhere kind of fighter. She's more a steady plodding, which honestly in these female divisions can win you a lot of fights. It won Carla Esparza UFC belt. Just be slow, steady, and well balanced. So it's not a bad thing. And so I think that Jacqueline Amarim just has more potential here. And I think if she shows any kind of flash, any kind of fast twitch muscle, anything that can back Loma up, I think she has this fight. If she lets Loma plod forward and do what she does in every freaking fight, she's going to have a rough day. But if she gets her on the back foot and she says, I'm the more athletic one, you may be the more heralded, more wins and stuff, but I'm the more athletic one, I'm the younger one, I think that would serve her well in this fight. And so, for that reason, my pick is going to be Amarim. Not a big bet, probably one solid unit, because it is women's MMA, but I lean to the Amarim side here.
Okay. And I see Jacqueline winning this fight as well. Things that stand out for me, she's never been finished. She's done very well on the ground. She's got eight finishes on the ground out of 10 victories. And the other 2 victories, she's got KO TKOs. So she's a finisher. She's 100% a finisher. So I think Loma's in trouble in this one, actually. I don't know. I think if I was a betting man, and both have had fairly equal talent on their way up, but I would say that Jacqueline, in my book, should be actually a more heavy favorite. So just my thoughts. Anyway. So, all right, going on to Vera and Zhu, UFC debut by Kanji Zhu, and 1-0 in the LFA, Rodrigo Vera. So both making their UFC debuts technically here. How do you see this one going? I have a guess here, but I'll let you speak first, because we may disagree, and I'm kind of loaded for an argument today with you.
I could tell that when you logged on. So you know what? An argument you shall have, Pat Militech.
Well, maybe.
I think we should argue anyway. Holy freaking line movement on this fight, buddy. Zhu Kanji. The betters love the hometown kid. I mean, they are fighting over in Asia, Macau, China, I believe. You know I love some big time line movement. How do you feel about opening up at minus 160 for Rodrigo Vera? He's now down to minus 110, and the fight is a natural pick'em. Minus 110 on both sides. You know what that tells me? They may be the exact same odds, but Zhu Kanji is the way, way, way better value for the exact same price, because every professional sports bettor and their grandmother is taking Zhu, and I wouldn't be surprised. We're podcasting on a Friday afternoon. These fights start tomorrow morning. Remember that, bright and early in China. So I like Zhu a lot. I bet he's more like minus 150 by the time the fight starts tomorrow. If you want to lock that in now, bet him now. I bet his number is going up.
Really?
Up. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Like
well, I think you're doing this. I don't know. Maybe I'm confused. I think you're doing this on purpose to actually have an argument with me, because when I look at Rodrigo Vera, 21-1, 8-0 in the KO, TKO area, 3-0, never been finished, 10-1 in decisions, and has a 12-fight run victory run going. And I looked at the records pretty closely on this, but Kanji has lower quality opponents by far. Rodrigo Vera has really pretty solid. He's had a solid schedule to get to this point. I think that Vera, here we go, buddy. I think that Vera mops the fucking floor with him. I think Vera mops the floor. What do you think about that?
Huh? I think when you tune in next week for the show and I'm not here, you'll understand why. So I like it, and I'll say on that note, and that line movement is not an exact science. I'd say it's right, maybe about 85-90% of the time, maybe more like 85 for these guys. But it certainly happens where the line movement does not tell the whole story, and there you go.
Line movement is a representation of how lemmings follow each other off a cliff. Joshua Chobin. That's how it happens. That's how it happens. It's free, and you'll get a cheeseburger if you do it.
This is my number one betting technique, Pat. This is my life you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's good.
But Pat and I joke, but he does make a fantastic point. Every time Pat asks me to break down a fight, I will almost always mention line movement, but I'll mention several other things. So it's watching. Tape study is very important. Like Pat talked about, looking at strength of schedule, how they match up against each other. All of that is very important. It's way more than just line movement, although I do have a ton of respect for line movement. I will say that.
Yeah, no, and most of the time it absolutely proves out. So I'm not doubting that at all. Okay, moving on to Zhang against good old Angela Hill. Angela Hill's been fighting for an awful long time. Interesting matchup. Hill has like 30 fights, almost 30 fights in the UFC. She has been around for a long time. Zhang is 10-1 in ONE FC. So I'm quite interested to hear how you break this fight down. I want to get it from you. I'm leaning one way, but we'll listen to you first because you're the expert.
Yeah, obviously Angela Hill, one of the better known names on this card. She is a veteran in every aspect. I believe she might have the record for at least her division of UFC fights, if not more UFC fights than any woman. So good for her. Has been kind of the definition of a 500 fighter, as I think even below 500, but has certainly had some staying power in that division. So she's a decent-sized underdog here, but becoming less of an underdog every hour, it would seem. Jinan opened up at minus 265 on FanDuel. She's minus 200 now. That means that some sharp pro bettors are liking the veteran Angela Hill here, but it's not like everyone is running to the window to bet the underdog here. I've never been the biggest Angela Hill fan. I think she's always been a little underwhelming, and it's more of an issue of she can beat girls who aren't UFC level anytime she gets like a legit female UFC level fighter. She does seem to struggle a little bit. She's fast, doesn't have any power, doesn't have much in the way of wrestling. She's just kind of a pitter-patter pillow puncher, which can certainly get the job done by decision against a lower fighter. I don't know what to make of Jean Nan. I think that she's built a career. When you look at strength of schedule, Angela Hill has this in spades. But Jean Nan's going to be younger. I think that she can probably match Angela Hill's quickness. This is tough. Gun to my head, I'm going to say give me the plus money with Angela Hill because I think this should be more of a pick'em fight instead of Angela Hill being plus 170. So you give me $100, I'm going to bet it on the underdog every day because I think it's a 50-50 fight, but it's not priced like that.
Interesting. Okay, well, when I'm looking at it, Hill, yeah, just pretty much everything you said. She's got decent power, although not a high knockout ratio for anyone. But they're 115 pounds, right? So it's not like, they're not going to pack a punch. That's just the way it is.
On Jake check, but I hear you. Most of them don't.
Right. Yeah. So, but Jingyang is 10-1 in ONE FC. I mean, there were not a ton of slouches in that organization. I mean, they actually had quality talent in that organization. She's 19-2, 10-0 in the KO, TKO, 1-1 submissions, 8-1 with decisions. So she can go the distance, no problem, and does quite well actually in decisions. And she's 6-0 in her last 6 fights. I lean toward the younger girl in this one. I just think she's going to easily match the speed. She is fast. She's got great endurance. She's 19-2. I think she's going to win the fight. She's got too much for Angela at this point in Angela's career.
I like it.
Okay,
We'll
all right.
have to argue about another fight because we're both on the Angela Hill train this week.
No, I'm on the Jin Yang. I'm on the Jin Yang train on this one.
I totally misunderstood you. Okay, so yeah, but you think she gets it done by decision, right? Because Angela Hill really does not get finished.
No, I think it's a decision most likely. Yeah.
Tough to finish Angela Hill. Maybe Lee can tell us, or maybe you have it in your notes. I don't know that Angela Hill's ever been finished in the UFC.
She's been finished twice by submission.
Okay.
So, so out of those 16 losses in the UFC, 2 of them have been by submission, never by
Ronda
KO.
Marcos
TKO,
was one of those. I remember that clearly now. Yeah, Ronda Marcos was one of those submissions.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to Ray Tusaria and Louis Garul. Garul, if I remember, he's either one of your favorite or one of your most unfavorite fighters to bet on because you've either lost a ton of money or made a ton of money. It stuck with me, and I felt like the minute I read the name, we both know Garul well, but something's gone on in your life where there's some trauma associated with it. You've had to go to treatment because of it. Can you inform the viewers of what's really gone on for you?
I wake up at 4 a.m. in night sweats screaming, Louis Garule! So, no, it's the reason that it is fresh in your memory, brother, is actually a much better reason. You were close, just not quite in the same ballpark. Louis Garule was my favorite bet 3 very short weeks ago on the Chimaev card. Other than me liking Strickland as a big underdog quite a bit, I loved Garule. He had lost his first 3 UFC fights, and they were giving him a 4th one for some reason, and I really loved the matchup, and he did very well. Won all 3 rounds, smashed, won my fairly large bet, and he had opened as an underdog too, and he was now minus 150. So that was my favorite bet of the entire week. I gave it out to our viewers. I gave it out to everyone listening. And I immediately texted you and Lee as soon as he won. So that is why Mr. Garule is so fresh in your mind, because he just made us some money 3 very short weeks ago. So obviously a quick turnaround for Mr. Garule here.
Well, And let me go through my notes here. Um, Ray is 1-1 in the UFC, 1-3 for Garuli. I think ultimately we've got one with pretty high. You're voting. You're going to bet on Garuli. Is that what you're saying?
No, sorry. I kind of threw it back to you to hear your thoughts. I'll just finish off mine, and then you
Oh,
go.
okay, okay.
Huge line movement for Ray Tassura here, buddy. So as much as
That's what I was wondering.
I can't fall too much in love with Gurule just because he made me money 3 weeks ago, because he's got a brand new opponent now that he does not match up nearly as good as he did with Daniel Bairez 3 weeks ago. Ray Tassura is legit, man. He's opened up at minus 200. He's minus 320 now. I mean, I get it. I probably have to do a little bit of digging where someone probably pulled out and they got Gurule back in there. He didn't take a lot of damage 3 weeks ago. He did get sparked once hard in the second round and kind of do the chicken dance. Other than that, he pretty much dominated the fight. You got to like the line movement for Tassura here. Pretty much every book, man. Bet Rivers is even bigger line movement. Opened up at minus 210. He's minus 350 now. The line seems to be soaring in Ray Tassura's direction. I think he's just the better fighter all around. Let me ask you, Pat, do you? Yeah, so Jesus Aguilar
Yes.
dropped out and gave Gurule the opportunity to fly over to China and get punched in the face for some money here and maybe get a win streak going. I don't think it's going to happen. And the 3 week layoff doesn't bother me that much. I just think Ray Tassura is a better fighter than him. Does the 3 week layoff bother you, Pat, as not only a legendary fighter but a legendary coach? Did you let your guys take fights just 3 weeks after having a war, or did it just depend?
3 weeks after a war, no. But there were guys fighting. Jeremy Horn was fighting, on Friday and then Saturday night in different places around the country for years because he wasn't getting hurt and he was, putting everybody to sleep pretty much. But Garuli coming off a fight 3 weeks ago against a guy that's actually pretty tough, pretty solid, has gone against high caliber opponents. I think the odds should flow more towards, away from Garuli. We'll just say that. I would, at least if I'm a betting guy, I'm going with Ray on this one in a pretty big way actually. So I'm looking at a 13 fight parlay here, buddy.
I
I'm
like
looking
it.
at a
I
13
like it.
fight parlay. I'm thinking a $25 bet on a 13 fight parlay and trying to pull this shit off.
Well, you know what, Pat? And I know that we like to plan on this show, and it's good. I'm going to throw out the idea that at the end of the show, you, me, and Lee each pick our favorite bet, and we do an MMA Mobsters 3-leg parlay. Each of our favorite bets, that's the parlay. How do we feel about that?
I I mean, I'm not against that at all. But if your bet falls through, or my bet falls through, or Lee's bet falls through, and costs us the money, then we got a problem.
We gotta go see Lee.
Then we got a problem.
You and I gotta hop in the truck and head down to Tennessee and say, "Hey, Lee, hey, buddy."
Yeah, collection time, bro. Um, so all right, so I'm leaning towards Ray Soria. You're leaning towards him as well.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Yeah, I
guessing?
mean, really,
Okay.
really, any time a guy goes from minus 200 to minus 350, and he ain't done moving. His line could be minus 400 by the time the fights start tomorrow morning. I'm rarely going to bet against that guy. That's very heavy line movement. And again, if you've been watching the show at all, you know this. Obviously, Pat does. But I will just say real quickly, lines don't just move because of mysterious forces in the wind. They move because bettors with a lot of money are betting one particular side, and the sportsbook wants to keep things even, so they move the line drastically. That tells us where the sharps are going. That's where you should probably go to. Make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, moving on to the next fight. Cody Haddon against Arquilling, a single name that I was picking up here on this. Number 30 ranked Arquilling against Cody Haddon. Haddon's 1-0 in the UFC, 4-4 for his opponent. Haddon's only got 9 fights overall, but he's 5-0 in the TKO area. Submissions, Never been finished, of course. Won 2 fights by submission. He's 1-1 in decisions, has a 6-fight win streak, but his opponents have been so-so at best, not high quality at that point in his career. Less experience on the other side. It looks like Erikling has almost always had fights against people who just had less experience. So his record's a little bit padded as well. Kind of an interesting matchup here. And where's the money moving towards these two guys?
Yeah, don't quote me on this. I believe it's pronounced Hori Lane. At least that's how they pronounce it on the broadcast.
Hori Lane.
But yeah, and Hori Lane he's a dog, man. He's one of those Asian fighters that I really like because the bag on these Asian guys for the longest time was, oh boy, can they strike. They can throw 5 punches before you throw 1, but they don't wrestle so good. China, Japan have wrestling programs, but not the pedigree of like a Russia and the United States. So that's where they would often run into trouble. We've got this new breed of Asian fighters who can wrestle now, man, and Hori Lane is one of them. And he's well-rounded, which you don't often see coming from this part of the world. And I like him. Unfortunately, the bettors do not like him so much. They like Cody Haddon quite a bit. Cody Haddon opened up at minus 320 on Caesar Sportsbook. He's minus 370 now. Kind of went the other way on FanDuel, opened up at minus 390. Now he's minus 350. So he's kind of moved 40 points in either direction. I like Cody Haddon here, but Hori Lane won't be a walk in the park for any fighter in this division. So I look for this to be a close fight, and I will have Cody Haddon pulling it off. I just don't want to bet a lot of money because I don't think it'll be a blowout. And anytime you think a guy wins, but it's going to be a tough road, don't bet him heavily. So this is kind of the rule.
And I'm leaning slightly towards Warlang, just with the massive volume of fights. It's hard. It's really hard for me to bet on a guy with only 9 fights. I don't know. I'm just leaning a little bit towards Warlang. It's a toss up to me. I mean, the numbers to me don't necessarily make a massive amount of sense. It's not like Warlang has done awful. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Yeah, he's lost some fights, but against some pretty tough guys later in the the career path here. So so the best on Cody Haddon's record. So that heavy movement of 370, 375 negative favorite stuff. I don't know. It's almost worth betting on Warlang at that point. If I'm a bettor, right? When you're doing the math, if you're looking to make money, you that's who you would bet on, right?
Exactly. And whenever you say that the odds should be more of a pick'em and it's a massive mismatch on the odds, I perk up and pay attention because you're often right on those things. That's what you said when Bobby Green was fighting Daniel Zellhuber. Zellhuber was like minus 500. You're like, this fight should be a pick'em. Sure enough, Bobby Green smashed him. Jim Miller fighting Jared Gordon a few weeks ago. Jared Gordon's a minus 400 favorite. You're like, these lines should be way closer. Jared Jordan submits him. So you have a track record of hitting on those. And I just want to point out that there isn't massive movement for Hori Lane. He's moved 30 points this way on a book, 30 points this way on another book. So bettors are torn on this fight. So if you believe this fight should be a 50-50 fight, you got to love the plus 250 price tag for a Hori Lane. Closer to plus 300 price tag for a Hori Lane. That's quadruple your money, buddy. That's turned $10 into about $39. Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right. So, just an observation I was making. All right, moving on to Meng Ding, 0-1 in the Pretender Series, 1-1 in ONE FC, and then Jose Enrique, 0-1 in the Contender Series, 8-1 overall against 35-9. I mean, huge gap again in people's records, number of fights here. Tear it up, buddy.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, I have a question.
Yeah.
Didn't you used to have to win your Contender Series fight to get into the UFC?
Well, I'm a little perplexed and a little confused, I guess.
What? not only one of the guys, but both of the guys lost their only Contender Series fight. And Dana White says, "Come on down. You want to fight for 10 and 10? Come on down. Join the UFC." So
Yeah.
I mean,
They have a pulse and can fog a mirror, bro. So there you go.
That's the truth. Yeah. So Ming Dane, the line's moving in his direction. He opened up at -114. He's -127 now. Yeah, both two guys who aren't exactly UFC level. Between the slight movement for Ming Dane and him looking a little better on paper, obviously having the home field advantage over here in Macau, China, I'm going to lean him, but it's not a confident pick by any means.
All right, I'm going with Ming Ding as well. Let's move on to Luis Felipe Diaz versus Yi-Sok Lee. The debut for Yi-Sok Lee against Luis Felipe Diaz, who's 1-0 in the UFC, 16-5 overall. What say you, Oracle?
Yeah, we got some fun names here, as you can expect, on a Macau, China card. Ming Dane opened up. I'm sorry, not Ming Dane. We just did Ming Dane.
Yi-Sok Lee.
Yi-Sok Lee opened up at +135. Now he's +145. His opponent, Felipe Diaz, opened up at -160. Now he's -175. Two lesser known guys. Most of this card, besides maybe Angela Hill, is largely unknown fighters up to this point, at least for the average fan. I like Felipe Diaz here. I think he's maybe a little better well-rounded and maybe can win the fight regardless of where the fight goes. He's going to be my slight lean, but again, not a super confident bet. What's your pick, buddy?
I think that Yi-Sok Lee's opponents have been really low level. To get to the 8-1, he should be 9-0 given the road he's had to take. At the same time, Luis Felipe Diaz's quality of opponents have been so, but I'm still leaning towards Diaz in this one. So there you go. We'll move on. We agree on this fight. Alex Perez against. Okay, how do I say?
Sumaderji.
That's it. Yes. Okay. Sumaderji against Alex Perez. Both guys are batting a little above 500, have some, substantial amount of fights in the UFC. Overall, 19-7 for Sumarji, and Alex Perez is 26-10. Break it down, brother.
I'm going to do it, Pat. I'm going to go against the line movement. And if this doesn't work, I will never go against the line movement ever again. I'm just kidding. I will. But this is one of those rare fights where I guess I don't have the expertise or resume that my Hall of Fame co-host does, but I've been betting significant amounts of money on every UFC fight since about 2020, and then betting before that, but really started taking it seriously about the past 6 years. So I have a basic knowledge, or pretty good knowledge, of all these fighters. I think Alex Perez wins here, man. Line movement be damned. And the line movement I'm talking about is Perez opened up at about -150. He's down to about -126 now. The line is kind of creeping in the direction of Sumaderji. That's not going to scare me away. Alex Perez just looked absolutely fantastic, putting a whooping on Charles Jordan, I believe is his name. It was the only guy to ever knock out Joshua Van. Is a very good fighter in his own right, and Alex Perez absolutely destroyed him. Perez is getting a little bit older, has had some injury issues, seems to be over those. Obviously, I never like going against the line movement, but I got to go with Perez here, even though his line has moved from -150 to -125. In this case, where I rarely go against the line movement, I say, hey, I'm getting better odds. I would have bet Perez at -150. I'm definitely betting him at -120. Here we go. One of the few times I disagree with line movement.
Okay. All right. Sumaderji, if it's going to get done, it's going to get done standing up because he's been finished 6 times on the ground, only gotten 1 submission himself. So the odds of him finishing Perez on the ground is just not likely. It's just not. And at the same time, Perez batting just above 500 in terms of win-losses in submissions. he's been on the ground a lot more, has a lot more experience there. So that's where I lean towards him. It's kind of a tough pick for me, but I I kind of have to go with Samerji on this. I just have to go with him. Um, I don't have to, but I'm torn, bro. I'm torn. This is, yeah. I catch myself. You second guess yourself. It's like first sight,
Yeah. Yeah.
first sight picture is the best picture.
Yeah.
And but then you look again and you're like, what's the wind tracking at? What's my distance again?
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff that you start second guessing. Samerji's literally terrible on the ground, but Perez batting 500 on the ground doesn't, it doesn't lean massive. Dude, I want to beat my head on the table right now.
Let me ask you this, Pat, because this is one of my favorite parts of the show. You and I did this speaking of some other flyweights, you and I did this on the Joshua Van Tatsuda Taira, and we went back and forth for 10 minutes, a very friendly debate, and we got the fight fucking right. So how do you think the fight is going to go? Do you think Sumaderji stands with them and they play Rock'em Sock'em Robots?
I think that's what I think. I'm leaning that way, and that's why I would lean towards Samerji.
Because both are capable wrestlers, but does it even need to go there?
Samerji for the win, bro.
Okay.
If it goes to the ground, it's going the other way. So, yeah. But
who do you think is more likely to initiate the grappling? Who do you think wants to stand more?
Perez is going to try and get this fight to the ground.
Okay.
Perez is definitely going to try and get this fight to the ground because Samerji's got 13 KOs and has been finished 0 times by KO, TKO. So it comes down to defense, offensive wrestling and defensive wrestling, right? That's the tough part. So anybody out there that feels that Samerji is going to get taken down pretty easily by Perez, I don't know. Anyway, all right, I'm going to lean a little bit towards Samerji on this one. Man, this is really putting in question my 13-fight parlay, bro. I know. What's the max you recommend for parlays to people out there that are actually doing this, putting money down? What's the max number of fights you would do on a parlay? I'm guessing just a hunch, probably not 13.
Not 13. Well, it depends on how much money you're putting down. If it's money you ever want to see again, then I would rarely go more than 4 or 5. There's nothing wrong with doing a $10 10-leg parlay, but don't expect to ever see that money again. So if I'm actually looking for a return on my investment, 4 is probably the highest I would go. Okay.
All right. So everybody pay attention out there. Bet responsibly, or you can be like me and just not bet and enjoy the fights.
And I really enjoyed that. And I really, obviously we can't do that on every fighter. This show would be 6.5 hours, but I do enjoy when Pat really thinks on a fight, and I really think on a fight, and we get into it. So Pat's lean is Sumaderji. My lean is Alex Perez. I think it's a 50-50 fight and can go either way. So,
all right, there you go. All right, moving on to Jake Matthews, Carlston Harris. Jake Matthews with a lot more experience within the UFC overall. It's not like Harris doesn't have, a good amount of fights. He's got 26 overall fights. But what say you, buddy?
Couple of veterans here. Jake Matthews gets the obligatory. They try to usually put a couple Australians on the Asia cards because those two countries are so close together. A lot of the same comings and goings. Jake Matthews is solid. Never really attained to the status of title challenger that a lot of people thought that he would, but he's been a very good gatekeeper, UFC veteran, certainly hasn't had a bad career. The odds like him here. He opened up at minus 330. He's up to minus 405. I think the odds would be even better if, in I believe his last fight or second to last fight, then some very strange things happened. He had Neil Magny choked out. The ref kind of flubbed it there in the first round. The fight should have been over. Neil Magny was out, and they just kind of pulled him back up and let him continue fighting. And as often happens when mistakes are made, they avalanche, and Neil Magny ends up submitting Jake Matthews even though Jake Matthews won the entire fight. It's like, because of course that happens. So it happens. But Jake Matthews, you get to buy his stock a little low because he lost a fight that was just really ripped out of his hands from poor refereeing. So Jake Matthews opened up at minus 300. His line moved to probably more where it should have been at minus 400. I like Jake Matthews here. Him and Ray Tesura are going to be my big bets on this card. Well, not huge, but they're going to be my bigger bets on this card and my more confident bets.
Okay. Yeah. And I lean towards Jake Matthews as well. I did not know the odds. But I was leaning that way anyway. So I'm glad that you agree, for many of the things you mentioned. All right. Kai Asakura against Cameron Smotherman. Smotherman 1-2 in the UFC, and Asakura 0-2. Asakura looking for his first win in the octagon. Not great competition for Smotherman from my perspective, but experienced competition against Asakura, during his road. And I'm interested to hear what the odds are, if there's been movement on this, and kind of what your pick is.
There has been some movement, Pat, and I think the issue is that Kai Asakura, for all of his accolades, seemed to maybe not really earn it. He was given a UFC title shot, his first fight ever in the UFC, when there were much more deserving fighters like Joshua Van, for instance, and others, Manel Kopp and others, and got absolutely smashed by Pantoja. And it's like, okay, Pantoja beats everyone. He's possibly the greatest flyweight of all time. We'll give you good old Tim Elliott. You'll beat Tim Elliott easily, right? Nope. Tim Elliott touched him up standing, took him down, rubbed that otter beard in his face, and tapped out Asakura in the second round. And now we're like, whoa, does this kid even belong in the UFC? Yeah, he looked okay in ONE FC, but he didn't even go undefeated in ONE FC. He lost several fights to good fighters, and I'm just starting to think that maybe Asakura isn't cut out for this. So I have some interest in Smotherman, just like I had some interest in Tim Elliott at very similar odds in this fight. So, and I think some other bettors do too, and the line movement tells that story. Kai Asakura opened up at minus 305. He's more like minus 260 now. So not huge line movement, but it is moving in the way of Smotherman. I think you put any name in this spot, and bettors are going to want to fade Kai Asakura because in his 2 UFC outings just hasn't looked great. It doesn't look like he belongs. And so I have a little bit of interest in Smotherman, but I think at some point the real Kai Asakura has to stand up, knock someone out, do what he's shown he can do. I just don't know. I'm going to lean Cameron Smotherman here because I have to, but it's not a big bet. What do you think?
I just think Smotherman's competition has been not so great, and Asakura has faced definitely tougher competition. He's also gone through Ryzen at 13-3 in Ryzen. Ryzen has quality fighters over there. They really do. And that's some of the things that are making me lean towards Asakura in this fight. Although he's, coming up in weight in this fight as well, which is, something that I have to weigh on this. But I'm just going to lean a little bit toward Asakura. I'm just a tad.
Does this set off alarm bells for you, Coach, when a guy comes in heralded as the next big thing? He had this success in ONE FC. Let's give him a title shot right away. He gets smashed in the title shot. Tim Elliott ragdolls him, and then he's like, welp, maybe I'm not a 125er. Maybe I'm a 135er. Well, maybe you're just not UFC level. So does that concern you at all, the whole – because that's kind of like admitting defeat, right? 2 fights in, okay, I'm going to hop up a weight class. I don't know.
Well, I just know that there's been people who have cut weight for so long, and it's beaten them up so severely that they're like, I have to make the change. And 10 pounds is a ton of weight from 125 to 130. It'd be totally different if it was, a guy who was fighting at light heavy going up to heavy, right? But 10 pounds is a massive amount of weight for guys this small. I think he comes in probably a lot stronger, obviously. And he's been fighting at a smaller weight, which they're going to be quicker. That's just the way it is. So he's going to come in with speed, probably a lot healthier. Yeah. I'm just going to lean slightly towards Asakura, though, just barely on this one. So we'll see what happens in that one, and we'll talk about it next week. We've got.
And I'm going to throw out one more thing. I know we're kind of getting to the point where we
go ahead.
things up. I'm looking at a live bet here, buddy. We have seen Kai Asakura actually looked pretty good for the first 2 minutes against Pantoja, kind of put it on him. And we're like, oh, maybe the kid's for real. Pantoja weathered the storm, and then Asakura just gassed out bad, and Pantoja pounded him. Similar in the Tim Elliott fight. It was a competitive first round, and then Tim Elliott just did whatever he wanted, and it was actually kind of an embarrassing performance from Kai Asakura. We may be looking at some gas tank issues here. I mean,
Sure.
I think if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it might be a duck. So when we get to the second, if we get to the second round here, and Kai Asakura hasn't done a spinning karate wheel kick and knocked out Cameron Smotheren. Cameron Smotherin's a very live dog if this hits a second round, and I will be paying attention for a live bet there.
And I would say you're 100% correct, but is it based on the horrible weight cuts he's had before, and does he have better endurance because he didn't deplete himself too severely? So there's a lot to weigh there. This is going to be interesting how it plays out. Look forward to seeing, the results anyway. So, all right, Pavlovich versus Teixeira. Tellison Teixeira, the heavyweights go at it. 8-3 for Pavlovich. Pretty rough cat against Tellison Teixeira, who's ranked 18th, going against number 3 Sergey Pavlovich. Teixeira 2-1 in the UFC. I know where I'm leaning. I didn't really look at the odds. I have a feeling the odds might be a little skewed, but you can tell me what those odds are.
If by skewed you mean the heaviest line movement of the card, you would be correct. The better's Pavlovich, I think. And it's not like Pavlovich is untouchable. We saw Volkov beat him up badly. We saw Tom Aspinall knock him out, but Tom Aspinall knocks everyone out. I think that the Volkov one was more like, okay, maybe he isn't this unbeatable Terminator that we've come to believe Sergey Pavlovich is. Because I remember back in the Davenport, Iowa days of you and I doing the show, we were talking about Pavlovich, and at the time he was undefeated, and he was the only fighter in UFC history to win his first 5 fights by knockout. This guy was fast lane to a title shot that got derailed a little bit, but that doesn't mean that he sucks all of a sudden. He gets Tellison Teixeira here, who has been a little underwhelming. Obviously, big favorite against Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis catches him. And then even in his last fight, he struggled a little bit, seemed to gas out really bad against Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa had more gas in that third round than Tellison Teixeira does. That should never happen. Tai Tuivasa should not be out cardioing you ever. No offense.
Right.
Yeah, that's bad. So, yeah, I think Pavlovich smashes him here. And I think at minus 500 is a bit of a steal. And if you want to shrink it down to Pavlovich wins by finish, you can do that. Pavlovich by finish is one of my favorite bets on the card here. It's heavyweights. Anything can happen, but I think this bet clears.
What's Pavlovich by KO?
I will look that up. And also, we do have the Alonzo Menifield fight too. But all right, fight goes to decision fight doesn't go as minus 500. So Pavlovich by finish, you would be shrinking his odds from minus 550 to about minus 300, which I don't hate.
Okay. All right, there you go. All right, so I think Sergey finishes him. I really have that feeling. What's that?
Which round?
I think he gets him out of there potentially in the first round.
I like it.
I think second latest, but I think Pavlovich puts it on him here and scorches him. So there you go. That's my pick there.
Something a lot of sports books do, Pat, is they give you can do round by round, or you can do 1.5 rounds. So you could take Pavlovich and under 1.5 rounds. That would give you a little more cushion. So that might be a bet that you like.
Okay. Thank you for advising the listeners on that and reminding me of the subtleties on betting and what you can do with that, because I forget. I'm just so focused on who's going to win and lose and things like that I get into that. When you're talking about making your living at it, you get a little more detailed, obviously. So a little more important. All right, moving on to Minyang Zhang against Alonzo Menifield. I've always liked Menafield. He's 10-6 in the UFC. Talented guy, really well spoken guy. Looks like he was carved out of granite against Zhang. Zhang 3-1 in the UFC. Pretty tough character himself, but the quality of opponents have not been, good at all. I will just say. So anyway, where are the odds at? Who's favored? Who's not? And who do you think's going to win, buddy?
Yeah, you may be surprised by the odds here, Militech, because I certainly was. I have a lot of respect for Alonzo Menningfield, too. I think Min Yang is still somewhat of an unknown, but Min Yang's the big favorite and climbing. He opened up at minus 230. He's now minus 260. When I saw these odds a few days ago when they were released, I thought this would be going in the other direction. I thought bettors would be saying, holy smokes, I'm getting a deal of a lifetime on Alonzo Menningfield. That's not the case. They're not steaming Min Yang, but they are taking the Min Yang side. I don't know, man. I want to pick Menningfield, but I'm going to lean Min Yang barely. When the Alex Perez fight, I really believe in Alex Perez in that fight. I don't believe in Menningfield here, but I do think the odds are a little disrespectful. I don't know. Maybe there's something going on we don't know about, but for him to be such a big favorite, I don't really get it.
Your intuition should be like screaming in your ear right now, right?
It always is.
I mean, that tendency to, and I understand why, you move with the line, quite often, not always, as you've mentioned. But on this one, I just look at the numbers and I don't know. I'm seeing Menafield win this fight. And again, Zhang's opponents have been straight garbage. I mean, straight garbage. I'm not disrespecting.
It was Anthony Smith's retirement fight, I think, which was a layup.
Anthony Smith was so far past his prime.
It was a layup.
All of that. So like you just can't go on that. From my, humble perspective, I think Menafield's going to win the fight. I think his quality of opponents have been equal to him at least. He's fought a lot of tough guys. So I lean towards Menafield here, pretty heavily as him, the underdog even. So there you go.
I think maybe the only thing to think about Menningfield would be he is getting old. Min Yang has the age advantage here, and these big bricked up, muscly guys. I look at Yoel Romero and stuff like that. Eventually, you're going to slow down a bit. You're always going to be tough, but yeah, these big bricked up gladiators, age does not seem to treat them the best. So that would be maybe some.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, look. Logic. We're both trying to be logical here. This is not an emotional thing for us. It's logic, and we're trying to just bring about perspectives for people to look at if they're going to put some of their hard-earned money into this. So anyway, Yadong Zong against Figueiredo. Figueiredo, he's always been a pretty exciting fighter. He's been in a lot of wars. Yadong Zong, number 6 ranked in the world. How are you comparing these two? What are you looking at? How's the line moved? All those good things, buddy.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite fights of the card. Obviously, your main event here. China's own Sun Yadong fighting in his backyard against Davison Figueiredo, who I don't know what we're doing with Davison Figueiredo here. Obviously, had a very fun, maybe a 10 fight streak there where he was the champion at 135, had that great rivalry with Brandon Moreno, and then moved up in weight. And at 135, he's just kind of been a bit of a punching bag gatekeeper for these top flight guys. Corey Sandhagen was all over him. Peter Yan was all over him. And then most recently, Umar Nurmagomedov was all over him. So what Davison does in these fights is he's very durable. He doesn't usually get finished, and he'll kind of get beat up for the entire fight, and kind of he's kind of like the 135 Derek Lewis. At least once in that fight, though, Pat, he will scare you. He will tag you with that patented Figueiredo power, and his opponent who's a large favorite will kind of blink and dance, and then he'll win the rest of the fight. So at least he makes it interesting, but he's there to lose, and Son Yadon's there to win, and that's reflected by the odds. Son opened up at about minus 400. He's been steamed out to minus 600. I'm all over Son Yadon here. No disrespect to Davison, but his whole run at 135 has largely been marked by, they gave him a few guys that were below his level in Montel Jackson and Dan Ige, but anytime they give him a top 5 guy, he's going to get beat. So barring a miracle, Son Yadon will roll here. I'm more interested in fight goes to decision because, like I said, Davison is very tough. Son Yadon, ton of power, very talented, but he goes to decision a lot. So at minus 110, I can get fight goes the distance. It is 5 rounds, but I am very tempted by that fight goes to decision line. As far as Son Yadon at minus 650, throw him in your parlays, throw him in your girlfriend's parlays, throw him in your wife's parlays, do whatever. Son Yadon might be the most confident bet of the entire card. And fight goes to decision at double your money is very, very, very juicy. How about that?
Wow, you just threw down the gauntlet, bro. That's the gauntlet.
Whip it.
I mean, both guys are 9-2 in the KO, TKO area. Figueiredo's certainly got more accolades on the ground, although at the same time, Son Yadong has not been finished on the ground. He's 3-0 in that category, 10-6 overall on decision win-loss record. Son Yadong's 3-2 in his last 5, 2-3 for Davison Figueiredo. Both have obviously had solid competition. I mean, with some heavy underdog numbers on Figueiredo, I mean, there's a chance. There's a chance. There's a chance. But you're do that again real quick. Shake your head like that violently.
No
your
chance.
hair. I just wanted to watch your hair move. That's all. But but I do agree with your song. I lean a little bit, but he's not top 5. He's number 6.
Close
that could
enough.
be the jinx, bro. That
There
could
you
be
go.
the jinx.
I like it. I like
He's
it.
number 6. But anyway, so all right, I'll lean Son Yadong by decision on this. And anybody out there who wants to pick a winner in the main event, pick who wins, the manner they win, the round they win in. And if you are correct, you win some cell saviors and some Diamine clothing. So be the Nostradamus of MMA, and you can win some free stuff from Cell Saviors and Diamine. And then let's go to some questions real quick here, Josh. Here's a question for you both. If you have time, if you could schedule an ultimate super fight, fighters in their prime from any era, who would you like to see? For instance, GSP and versus Royce Gracie. Well, we saw that Matt Hughes versus Royce Gracie, and we saw what happened with that one. But they were not in their primes, and I don't think it would have mattered, to be honest with you. Matt was just too physical for him. But do you have any matchups from eras that you'd like to see?
Yeah, when I look at guys who I think would transcend any era, I think of, not to be a homer, but I think of the MFS guys. I think guys like Pat Miletich, Robbie Lawler, Jens Pulver would have a ton of success today, and I think that their styles and everything would be right in line with what MMA is today, which is a balanced approach to the game and being excellent in everything. And yeah, I would love to see Matt Hughes fight the champion at his weight class today, which I guess would be the 170 champion currently is Strickland. So let's get Matt Hughes.
No, Strickland's 185. Strickland's 185.
Goodness,
right?
I am off it today. The 170 champion is, do not tell me it is Islam. So give me Matt Hughes. Islam, I want prime Matt Hughes. I want prime Matt Hughes.
Islam Makhachev is not going to go out and just ragdoll Matt
today.
Hughes in wrestling. So, yeah, that's interesting. And I'll take Fedor Emelianenko against any modern-day heavyweight that's currently in the UFC.
All right,
Any
final
of them.
question. Sharon, who has been a big fan, she's been liking all our stuff on TikTok and
Thank you, Sharon.
Instagram. Thank you, Sharon. Pat, as a UFC legendary coach, do you ever want to go back to training fighters?
Would I ever go back to training fighters? That would have to be a situation probably with like a giant sponsorship and, some substantial amounts of Yeah, I enjoyed it. I did it to the best of my abilities, and I lived for it and burnt the candle at both ends as a coach. And so, for me, I expended massive amounts of energy in that venture, and we had a lot of success and had a lot of fun. Would I do it again? That would take some prompting and some egging on with probably some pretty serious numbers, to be honest with you, because I enjoy my life right now a great deal. Even though I don't make massive amounts of money, I really enjoy what I do, and so yeah, it would have to be massive amounts of money to get me to go back. All right, so everybody out there, subscribe, like, and share
Yes.
MMA Mobsters on all platforms and YouTube as well. So please join us there. So Josh, closing out real quick before we go.
Yeah, I'll just close it out with this. I really enjoyed the Islam Makhachev Matt Hughes thing. In closing, give me your prediction. Does it go the distance, or does Matt Hughes finish Islam?
I think Matt's too physical for him, to be honest with you. I think he and Frank Frank Shamrock will be middleweight champion. No, he would not. No, he would not. So I love Frank, but no, he's not going to go out and beat Sean Strickland. That's not going to
Like,
happen.
share, and subscribe. We love you guys.
Yep. All right. Adios, guys. Thank you.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah. Hey. Giving it all. Hey. Yeah. I'm giving it all I could give. Run up and taking my pick. Then bringing it back to the crib. Yeah. You know how I go. We finding the gold, the deeper we dig. So we just keep digging till we finally get it. Like fuck it, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Yeah. I gave you my word, don't break it for no one. You know I'ma keep what I said. Ready for war, I've been deep in the trance. And jumping since I had them squeaks in the bed. Ice in my body, I'm cold under pressure. Recovered like I had no heat in the vents. Shooting, I don't have a conscience. Too much to accomplish. You know I can't leave it to chance. Yeah. Throw it in the bag. Throw some dots, I'm Jackson Dart. I'm out of pocket playing tag. Catch me if you can. Empty out the mag. Took the lead, I run the track. And I'm never looking back. Going for the moment, always rolling with the punches. Find a way to see through the ceiling, put a cover. Smoke is in the air, keep it heavy in abundance. When the dust settles, let's see who remains.